We've all heard about toxic fans. We've all seen bad faith takes, bullying, harassment, and just silly levels of media illiteracy on pretty much every online platform. It's even a topic which has made it into a fair few of my videos previously. It's a problem. But in some ways, the discourse around fan toxicity may be exacerbating this problem. And that's what we're talking about today. This video isn't really about the problem with toxic fandom as a phenomenon. If it was, it'd be like 10 times longer. No, this video's about that label itself. Toxic fans, and why we might need to rethink our usage of it. This is also the 8th Pillar of Garbage Patreon community video. That means the topic for this was generated by and selected by my Patreon supporters. This time the video ideas from Adam Myers. Adam's opinion is that we should stop using this term, toxic fans, because it legitimizes anger and toxicity as a form of fan love by maintaining those being toxic are still genuine fans. Over the next 12 minutes-ish then, we're gonna dig into this position, into the toxic fan label, into fanhood and fandom conceptually, and into the power of our linguistic practices. To begin with, then, what is commonly meant by the phrase toxic fan? As suggested above, I've talked a few times before on this channel about toxic fandom culture, directly and indirectly, but let's see how other sources define it. Per verywellmind.com, toxic fandom is a buzzword that has been used in recent years by journalists, news outlets, and others to identify popular culture fans who engage in behaviors that are considered negative and unacceptable. Naomi Starlight, writing for Real Rundown, characterizes the phenomenon in more colloquial terms. Toxic fans are essentially the abusive party in an abusive relationship with the content they're a fan of. That is, they aren't just there to celebrate it, but to control it and neg it. This toxicity is a stain upon the landscape of pop culture, but in these articles, and in formal discussions of the issue more widely, the term toxic fan is still used. On some level then, there seems to be an understanding that toxicity doesn't necessarily preclude fanhood, that you can be toxic and still be a fan. So does that mean there isn't an issue with the label toxic fans? Initially, it might seem so. If we look at the way fandom has been defined, there doesn't necessarily seem to be a contradiction here on a conceptual level. Starlight, for instance, in her article on toxic fans writes, "Fandom is simply when a community forms around a shared liking of something." Her definition is wide enough to include toxic fans. After all, you could very well conceptualize a lot of this toxicity as simply people liking too much, and in unhealthy ways. Let's take a more authoritative definition, though. For fandom scholar Cornel Sandvoss, the essential core of the fan experience is the regular, emotionally involved consumption of a given popular narrative or text. And again, this seems to include those exhibiting toxic behaviors. But while this definition is more specific, perhaps more helpful, it's also more abstract. So for another viewpoint, a more direct look at what makes a fan, I asked some fans. I got a few different answers, a couple humorous, some similar to the above, but also other ideas. For instance, the idea that knowledge is required. Others boiled it down immensely, stressing that to be a fan is simply to like something. A couple of people agreed that there was an element of self-designation here. That is, you're a fan of something if you decide to be, if you consider yourself a fan. That's interesting, because that's an angle which wasn't super present in any of the previous definitions. And hey, I didn't get a bunch of answers, this is a very small sample size, but that isn't the first time I've heard of the last idea. To be honest, it's kind of the definition I'd had in my head before I started work on this video. But I'm not quite sure this definition coexists with, say, Sandvoss's in a totally stable way. I'm gonna speak personally for a minute, so bear with me because I promise it's relevant. I like watching pro-level Counter-Strike. It's a tactical shooter, one of the biggest names in esports, and my favorite team is called Ninjas in Pajamas, or NIP. I try to watch all of their games, I've got some merch, I think their players seem like cool dudes, etc, etc. I'd consider myself a fan of NIP, and I'm emotionally invested in the narratives and storylines around the team. But they're not the only team whose narratives I'm emotionally invested in. When FaZe Clan won the Antwerp Major a few months ago, and veteran player Karrigan finally lifted the trophy he'd narrowly missed out on a few years back, I got goosebumps. That meant something to me too. When the new Cloud9 squad, largely comprised of young, outspoken Russian dudes who'd rarely been crowd favorites, got adopted by the American home crowd and won IEM Dallas, that was awesome. I was emotionally invested as heck. But I wouldn't label myself a fan of either of those teams. And there's plenty more examples I could give of situations where I'd meet Sandvoss's definition, that is, regularly consuming narratives with some level of emotional investment, but where I wouldn't self-designate as a fan. Maybe that's because I feel I'm backing another team against them. Maybe exclusivity factors into fandom somehow, and maybe this is an aspect of sports fandom, in some ways the original fandom, that I shouldn't be bringing into a discussion on media fandom. Because there aren't different teams in media fandom. Except there kind of are. We've all seen fans and stans on Twitter wishing, praying for the failure or downfall of a movie or franchise because they see it as a rival to their favourite one, right? And looking further back, you've got the whole Marvel vs DC, Star Trek vs Star Wars fandom squabbles. Dichotomies like these were often overblown. Sure, many fans enjoyed both, but I think it's indisputable that this team-based dynamic can be seen in media fandom spaces as well, not purely sports ones. And as a result, I think the above point is relevant here. Definitions clash. I can't see that there is a wholly consistent and accepted definition for what a fan is and what a fan isn't. And it isn't just me. In the introduction to the second edition of Fandom, Identities and Communities in a Mediated World, we see that the question of what a fan is and how we should define the term has perplexed academics over the years. And in a later piece of scholarship, Sandvoss even recognizes the limitations of his earlier definition, that being a fan is determined by the regular emotionally involved consumption of a given popular narrative or text. The only conclusion I feel confident drawing at this stage, then, is that this term is an extremely broad and slippery one. Its meaning isn't specific or fixed. To some degree, it only means what we use it to mean. All linguistic meaning is socially constructed, after all.
That's a made-up word.
All words are made up.
And this goes double for words which themselves describe socially constructed phenomena, because what is a fan, other than what is signified by the generally accepted concept of the fan? And here's the kicker, that means it can change. But you don't have to take my word for it. Chenbo writes that language and meaning change rapidly or slowly as the communicative practice of a linguistic community does. As a community then, we all play some small unconscious role in defining fandom. On some level, the answer to the question, are toxic fans still fans, is only if we consider them to be. As fans, we ourselves are responsible for determining the ongoing meaning of this label. And we are a community. No matter who you ask, scholars, less academic writers, or fans themselves, the communal aspect of fandom is essential. Even in early fandom studies, fandom was understood as more than the mere act of being a fan of something. It was seen as a collective strategy to form interpretative communities. Stepping away from scholarship, remember Starlight's definition. Fandom isn't just the liking, it's when a community forms around the liking. Or look at the answers my followers gave. These two included the idea of joining a community, or sharing your experiences. Check out Francesca Copper's A Brief History of Media Fandom for more on this, but in a nutshell, the birth of modern media fandom was a community of people taking seriously something that was seen as disposable. They thought it was good, maybe they thought it was bad, but they thought it was worth discussing, and essentially worth discussing together. The introduction to the second edition of Fandom, Identities and Communities in a Mediated World, concludes with the following. In an era in which traditional markers of identity in high modernity such as employment, class, marriage, and national belonging, but also age, religion, sexuality, and gender are increasingly unstable, fluid, and on occasion ephemeral, the imagined but voluntary communities we join through fan attachments are as important as the self-identity that is constructed and narrated by fans individually. Fandom, at its core, is community. And I think that's the strongest argument for why we maybe shouldn't consider those responsible for spreading toxicity real fans, even if they claim to be, even if they regularly consume these products in an emotionally involved way. Because toxicity, bullying, bad faith, intolerance, these are qualities antithetical to community, and if they're working against the very foundations of fandom, are they really a part of it? Now, there are dangers to this sort of didactic labeling. If someone with a big enough platform decides your own valid critiques are toxic, should they hold the power to strip you of your fan identity? For instance, Laurie Hitchcock Muramoto and Bertha Chin note the way that dissent voiced by marginalized fans has been labeled toxic in some fan spaces. Calling out toxicity is itself subjective, and the dismissive power of the label may well be a double-edged sword. There are undoubtedly questions to be answered here, but I think as fans, as a community, we can work toward those answers together, because our language is important. The way we verbalize our thoughts and feeling, the words we use, and the ways we use them have the power to maintain or radically alter the concepts we discuss. If toxic fans are fans, then fan space will continue to permit them. harmful modes of media consumption will keep on growing. Historically, media fandom has had a hard enough time getting society and academia to take them even remotely seriously, as creatives, intellectuals, or just as people whose viewpoints are worthwhile. The growth of toxicity and the unconscious, tacit acceptance of toxicity as a valid form of fan love only stands to set us back. And perhaps more importantly, it stands to hurt people and to damage the communities at the very center of fandom. If someone barges into your Discord server or Twitter community talking shit about this property or that, approaching it in bad faith, and complaining about non-white male-led projects because something woke agenda, or bullying and excluding others for valid opinions, call them toxic, but maybe don't call them a fan. Because from a certain point of view, they kind of aren't. Or do whatever. I'm not the bloody language police, and if you take a different perspective on what constitutes the position of fan, one closer to sandvosses or starlights, then call them what you will. But just remember to bear in mind the power your language choice has. Because while fan spaces and fan culture may shape and direct your language use also shapes and directs fan culture. Collectively, we hold great power here, and you know what they say about that. Again, this video has been made thanks to the support and ideas of my Patreon supporters. This one was a bit different, but with these community videos, I do as the patrons command. If you want to have a say in what the next community video is about, if you want access to a growing library of exclusive videos and other benefits besides, click the link on screen now and give my Patreon a look. Now's the best time to jump on, because going into September, I'm doing a bit of a restructure. Tiers are changing and generally prices are lowering, so have a gander. Thanks for watching though, and as always, likes, shares, and comments are very much appreciated. And special shout out to all my patrons on screen now, in particular Kevin Douglas and Ian Fifield.